Hi, I'm Susie Larson. Thank you for listening to Susie Larson Live. Faith Radio podcasts are only possible because of your support. So thanks for giving, and thanks for sharing with a friend.
It's only just a matter of It's only just a matter of sing, so the back row is you glide. 'Cause walking just won't do dance. You don't have to know how to. Ever since grace got you there.
Welcome to Susie Larson Live. Always so honored to get to spend this time with you. In fact, I look forward to bringing you conversations every single day that hopefully inspire you in your faith walk, that deepen your understanding of God's Word, and that heightens your awareness of His very real presence in your life. Some of you might know this, but many years ago I released a book. It's one of my signature books. It's called Your Beautiful Purpose, Discovering and Enjoying What God Can Do Through You. I love that book so much because it talks about just the battle and the journey we go through. First of all, to get a hold of the idea, God has a call on my life. He has a plan for my life. And then overcoming all the self stuff, the negative self-awareness, the insecurity, the enemy opposition, and allowing God to equip you and empower you as you go so that you can go on and do all the things that God intended for you. Do you remember what Ephesians 2:10 says? We are God's masterpiece, created anew in Christ Jesus, so that we can do the wonderful things He planned for us long ago. I am so passionate about seeing believers come alive to the truths of who they are in Jesus, because you know what? You're deeply loved, you're powerfully called, and you are profoundly equipped. But if you don't decide to step out in faith, you'll never know what's possible. You'll never tap into the fullness of what God has made available. If you do step out in faith, you will encounter some opposition. Your faith will be challenged. Your beliefs will be tested. And that's why so few ever dare to go all in with God and all the way with Him. But I want you to meet someone today. She's actually been on the show before, but it's been a while. She's all in, and what God is doing in and through her perpetually leaves me amazed. I first met Jami Kaeb at a women's conference. She helped at my book table. We became fast friends, and I mentored her for a number of years. Now I just stand back and I just watch her go. I'm telling you, she's going to inspire you today. And I think someday somebody's going to get smart and make a movie about her and her family because she is an inspiration. She joins me today, and you're going to hear her story. And my big prayer is not only that you're encouraged, entertained, and empowered by her story, but I pray God grabs a hold of you and starts to drop some dreams in your heart. And He starts to show you some of the impossible things He wants to do in and through you. That's one of the reasons I want to just bring Jami on and have her share her story so that you can see that there's just nothing that's too difficult for the Lord. So let me tell you about her, and we'll get her on the show. Foster care and adoption were not a part of Jami's dreams for her life, but God changed her heart when He made her aware, and she's passionate about helping others become aware too. She and her husband, Clint, are parents to their 7 children, 5 through adoption, and recently added their son-in-law to the mix. Jami's filled up by her time with Jesus in the stillness of the early mornings, walks with her husband, Clint, connecting with her kids, and growing in relationships with others. This is a very simple bio, and I love it. It's so precious. What she accomplishes and what God's doing in and through her, I think, are going to blow you away. Jami, welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Susie, thanks so much for having me on.
I'm looking forward to our conversation. And you know this, I think, about my show, but every day I love to ask the same question. And it's wonderful to me because we serve a God who loves to speak to us, who guards and guides us, who leads us. And I know your times with Him are a high priority. So in your times with the Lord these days, what's He been impressing upon your heart?
Yeah, I mean, I've been going through a season where my capacity has changed a little bit, and that has created in me some angst because I like to go, and I've been kind of in a season where I've not been able to in the same way. And God has just continued to remind me, you are not valuable to me because of what you do for me. You're valuable to me because you're mine. And I am just so grateful that that's true. I can't get enough of the gospel. I have been hanging out in Galatians. I kind of can't stop reading it and just remembering, like, you know, how Paul challenged the Galatians, like, foolish Galatians, why do you go back to the works of the flesh? Were you saved by the law or were you saved by the Spirit? And I think God just has to continually remind me that I am His, I am saved, And what I do for him is really just an outpouring of love, but it does
Come on.
not
Hmm.
save me. It does not keep me saved. It's
Yeah.
it's a gift.
Yeah. And it doesn't cause him to love you more. I've been reading
No.
through some Galatians as well. And I mentioned this on the show the other day, but one of the things that jumped out at me is when he said, how is it that you're seeing all these miracles? Because you kept the law perfectly? No, because you
Mhm.
believed the message of Jesus. And first of all, I felt like, well, he kind of normalized miracles there. So I'll take that. But the idea of
Yeah.
over and over again, how he talks about putting our whole weight on the power and the wonder of grace. In fact, you hear in the news constantly about public Christian leaders falling and failing. And so
Mhm.
often the
Yes.
media captures it by saying they fell from grace. And yet,
Mm.
Paul says he calls falling from grace when you're trying to build a structure to save yourself that's apart from grace, when you're trying to strive in your own strength. So he describes it
Mhm.
differently. That's pretty interesting, don't you think?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing about when you're a high capacity, high responsible person, and you go through seasons where that capacity isn't what it normally is. It's a good time for our hearts to be tested a little bit to go, am I
Mhm.
resting? Am I living out of the overflow?
Right.
So thank you for
Yes.
being
Yes.
honest about that. I would love a little backstory just on your faith journey. I know you've got amazing parents, but how you came to Christ and when that faith became your own.
Mm. Well, it is certainly is a journey. I grew up in a home that loved the Lord, where my parents showed me what relationship with Jesus looks like. Um, and that was hugely critical for me because I think naturally I was a very black and white thinker, and I also was someone who wanted to do it right. And so I think that's why I think even what I just shared at the beginning, like kind of following the law, can be a temptation. And the Lord, though, grabbed my heart when I was 12, really helped me see that I needed to be saved from myself. However, and it's been a journey from then and over and over and over as He's called us to step out in faith and trust Him and surrender and abide. And just, I feel like every step of the journey, He continues to just open my eyes to His love more
Hmm.
and what the gospel really means for me, um, continually, not just at the moment of salvation, but for today. I think that has just been a gift that He has given me throughout my life.
Yeah, you really have lived it out, Jamie, and you wrestle with it, and you're not content with status quo Christianity. And I respect that so
True.
much about you. And you've married an amazing man, and you
Yes.
guys are such a beautiful couple. You married, I think, when you were like 19, right?
I was 19. Yeah, I was a
Mm-hmm.
baby.
Wow. And did you have any idea back then what God might be doing in and through you?
No, no, not a clue. I had a very neat and tidy picture for my life. I thought, ooh, we'll get married. I will maybe have four children, two boys and two girls. Like I just had this
Mm-hmm.
very,
Mm-hmm.
neat and tidy picture that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to do the things I saw growing up. That was my desire, not bad desires, but I wanted something, I think, a life I could control.
Mm. That's laughable, isn't it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, when you're high responsibility, high capacity, we do love that we can get our arms around things. And then you hear God laughing because He's like, oh, just wait, baby, just wait. So,
Right.
okay. So you married Clint and you guys had two daughters, biological daughters
Hmm.
together.
Correct.
And then what
Hmm.
happened? So give us their names, Reagan and Paige,
Yeah,
right?
Paige is our oldest. She's 21 and married to Reed.
Mm-hmm.
And Reagan is our next, and she's 19.
Okay.
And yeah.
Wow. And then what happened after that?
So even during the season, I remember even after having Paige, we started to hear about adoption. We started to learn a little bit about adoption. My parents actually started a ministry that was really focused on orphan care and adoption. And so our eyes were being open to this idea. I even remember having a few friends who would say, like, do you guys think you would ever adopt? And my response was, well, only if I can't have children. Like it was just kind of this plan B, the second best sort of idea in my mind. I remember when Paige was an infant, she was probably maybe 6 months old. I remember hearing a story on the radio from Stephen Curtis and Mary Beth Chapman about their adoption. And I can still almost feel the pit that formed in my stomach when I said to the Lord, I hope you're not trying to tell me something. So that was the way I thought of adoption. It was scary. It was like, maybe only if we can't do it our way sort of thing. But God is so good and so gracious that just he took, really my lack of awareness, and he opened our eyes, and he just helped us to become curious. Like he just started slowly changing our hearts. And as we became curious, he really compelled us to pray, like maybe we should consider this for our family. As we prayed, ultimately we just became available. Our hands, we lifted our hands and said, okay, like we're willing. And through that's when he opened the doors and really even brought a desire into our hearts. We say often that awareness leads to action, and that was really the experience for me. We ended up deciding to adopt from Guatemala, and 18 years ago brought home our son Hudson, who's now 17. He was 10 months old at the time. And that really started our journey and just did a switch of the flip. Our hearts just turned for like, oh, I get this, and we can do this more.
Wow. We're going to pause here. When we come back, we're going to kind of keep going with Jami's story. And again, there's something in here for you, friends, even what she just said about what if you just, and I'm not talking, maybe adoption's not your thing, but maybe something else is, and maybe a mission trip, maybe supporting ministries that end human trafficking, maybe writing a book, maybe taking in a pregnant teen. I mean, who knows? But the gospel calls us to wild and crazy things. But what if you just opened your hands and said, Lord, I'm willing, I'm available? Because God's will for you actually is your best case scenario. Natasha writes in, she said, I'm an adoptee from Russia. I've been in the States since 1999. Orphans need love. My cousin is from Guatemala. Natasha, thanks for sharing. Talking to Jami Kaeb, and we're just really going to kind of walk through her story because it's just really amazing. And I just think we'll all be inspired to open our hands and ask God, write the story. I want to step into the big story that you're writing today. We'll be back in a minute.
The Bible is valuable, and reading and studying the Bible can transform your life. Hi, I'm Angela Smith, host of Reading the Bible Together podcast. Several times a year, we release a new Reading the Bible Together study. We've studied Luke, Daniel, Advent, Lent, and so many more. You can access all of our studies for free by going to the Reading the Bible Together resource page at myfaithradio.com. In addition to the studies, we also have the accompanying podcast. You can listen wherever you listen to podcasts. You can study on your own, or if your small group or Bible study is looking for what to study next, check out the Reading the Bible Together resource page at myfaithradio.com.
Thanks so much for tuning into Susie Larson Live. Once in a while, I'd like to bring a person on who's living the kingdom life, just really kind of out of the public eye, but working hard behind the scenes to follow Jesus and take his lead and take audacious risks. And my friend Jami Kaeb is someone who lives that way. And I still think someone should make a movie of her life because it's so amazing. But she loves Jesus. She married her sweetheart, Clint. They had two biological daughters together. And at first, when even the idea of adoption came to her, she thought, that can't be for us, is it, Lord? But when the awareness came, suddenly the invitation and the curiosity came. So they opened their hands and said, okay, Lord, we're willing, we're available. And they adopted a little boy, Hudson, from Guatemala. And he is now 18, I think you said. So after Hudson, then what happened?
Yeah, so then kind of God had changed our hearts, and we decided we want to adopt again. And this time, Guatemala had actually closed its doors to international adoption. And so we decided to try to pursue domestic adoption through the United States. So in domestic adoption, you create kind of a book, stories of your family, pictures of your family, just to show to birth moms who have chosen adoption for their child. And it was presented to many, many, many birth moms over the course of a year and a half or so. And everybody said no. And this was just a time that was really very difficult for me. It was incredibly vulnerable. I didn't understand. I kind of had a bad attitude, like, Lord, I said yes to adoption. Now it's your turn. And I feel like God just used that time, though, to just teach me so much. He taught me that, first of all, it's not about you. And he taught me that he was my first, that although I was desiring to care for a child and love a child, the child wasn't the prize, that Jesus was the prize, and getting to know him more was the ultimate. And he took us really through a season of waiting, but at the end of that season, really opened our eyes to this idea of, you know what, maybe it's not about bringing a child into our family. Maybe you're asking us to bring our family to a child. And that's really when he kind of opened our eyes to foster care, this idea of loving a child for a season with the hope that they can actually reunite in a healthy family. And so as we were kind of pursuing foster care and getting into foster care classes, I remember seeing a video of a little girl waiting in a foster care agency office while her worker was trying to call home after home who would take her. And everybody on the phone said, no, we can't take her. We don't have time. We don't have space. And this was a depiction of what happens across the nation. And it just broke my heart. God, I was in such a vulnerable place. I knew the pain of waiting. I knew the pain of the no, but I couldn't imagine the pain of a child hearing no after no. And it rocked my world. And I thought, I have to do something about this. And really, that's what prompted me. Took my 3 little kids, and I walked into my local state foster care agency, DCFS, here in Illinois. Had no idea what to expect. Didn't really know what I was even doing. But I just went and I said, I have questions. I didn't know that kids like this are in my community. I didn't know. And I just really need to know more. I'm wondering if you could help me know. And
tell
one
me
of the
this.
things that,
Let me interrupt. I'm sorry. How did they respond to you coming in with 3 kids, going, I don't have an agenda. I just got some questions. How did they respond to that?
Oh, I'll never forget. Marie was behind the counter, and she was very just friendly, and actually showed me around the office and said, well, here's where kids might visit with parents, or they might have to wait if, there's no homes available. And I remember even walking into that room and seeing these dirty white walls, outdated Disney decals plastered on the wall. I saw broken puzzle boxes, hard furniture, like everything in there was kind of sterile. And it just broke my heart because I had just begun to learn. And I was thinking, so there's kids that are being pulled from everything that they know, sometimes in the middle of the night. And here they come, and it's clear they haven't been prepared for, it's not an inviting space. And this was no fault of the agency. They did not have the resources or time to put in there. But I thought, well, certainly we could do something about this. These were the days of extreme home makeover. And I thought, can we just make this room beautiful? Can we make it feel like a living room, like a home? And they allowed me to bring in friends and family. And we painted walls, and we brought brand new furniture and toys. And we just really made that space beautiful.
And
So that kids could know that,
I'm so sorry. I just remember. I remember because we were connected quite often back then. I remember you hopping on Facebook and just saying, "Did you know that the local foster care office is like this? And would you be willing to help me?" And the next thing you know, you see these people, men, women, teenage boys, jumping, and you mobilized a group. Again, so they're going in, they're painting, they're bringing in fresh new toys, they're bringing in backpacks. How did these office workers respond to that?
Well, that was the coolest thing. They were so shocked. They were shaking their heads, walking through the halls, kind of laughing, kind of just like, I don't even know how to feel about this, because they would say, nobody does this for us. Like, why are you here? But they were so grateful. So it was like I saw this need in the agency, and the response of the workers. And at the same time, the church, I was seeing them go, oh, I want to get involved. I didn't know that was a need. I didn't know I could help that way. And the church was stepping in. And I thought, wow, like there's just a need that nobody really knows about, but it's real. And we have the church who wants to serve, but they don't know how. They just need a connector. They just need someone to guide them to meet the needs. And really, that's what ultimately became a nonprofit called the Forgotten Initiative, which our heart really is just to help the church support foster care agencies. And now we're doing this all across America because we believe that well-supported workers will more effectively serve children.
So, friends, this brokenhearted mom who is like, why do I keep getting rejected? I mean, I could weep when I think about it because it's like, God lets us feel these things because you're feeling his heart and you felt that little girl's heart. I mean, to have you be moved to such a degree to go, and the enemy is right there. I want you to take this personally. This is about you. You're rejectable. And God's like, no, I'm allowing you to feel this because it's pressing in a compassion. This isn't about you, actually, even though this hurts. It's about bringing you to children. And then you have this compassion and you understand these children, I mean, who are yanked out of homes. Talk about trauma, even if their home is absolutely dysfunctional, which it is if they're yanked out most often. It's traumatic to be removed, but to be able to come at least to an office where there's warmth, where there's clothes. And so talk about what you did from that point on as far as there was life on that. I mean, it's just the people rose up. What were your next steps to build TFI, the Forgotten Initiative?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't in this to build an organization. I was just trying to meet a need in my community, but I was sharing it because I was excited about what God was doing. And so I was sharing it on my blog, and people just started reaching out to me from different parts of the country saying, this is a need in my community too. Can you help me do what you're doing there? And literally that's how TFI began and how it has grown. Is we now have over 50 what we call advocates. They're really that connector. They are volunteer leaders in their communities, and we're just training them and coaching them on how to build relationship with the agency, find out what they really need, and then build relationships with their local churches and help the church serve in a way that even makes sense to the church but meets that felt need. And we're doing that in over 25 states across the nation.
Wow. And what are some of the ways that these advocates are serving these agencies?
Yeah. Sometimes it's worker appreciation efforts. So it might be events for workers just to share that we care about them as people. Sometimes it's helping them serve their clients. So they might need a bed for their client and they're having trouble finding that resource, or they might need backpacks for their clients. Other times it's just through prayer support, encouragement, notes of encouragement. Really, it's very basic. It's relational. It's relationship. We're trying to just create a path. We're building trust. We say we build trust, we build relationship at the speed of trust with these workers. And we just want them to know we're here for you. And we are in your corner because you are helping so many children. Who's helping you? We want to help you. And so we build relationships, and we've just found that as we build relationships, as we be salt and light to these workers, it's attractive to them. And then we found this to be true, whether that they live in whatever part of the country they live, whatever their faith is, or even if they work in a state or private agency, that they're feeling that relationship and they're asking for help. And the church is coming through, and we're able to show the love of Jesus through relationship.
How about your local agency? Because, I mean, you've got a presence there. How's your relationship with them now?
I mean, that's just continued throughout these years. Now, I am no longer the local advocate, but we've raised up other people throughout the years to be that connector, that local advocate. Our method and our model remains the same, but the person who's that connector has changed. But we are still in relationship with all of our local. Yeah, now I have 10 staff.
Wow.
Yeah, they are. Our focus here then is to really serve our advocates, those volunteer leaders, with ongoing coaching. We serve them through resources. We actually, because we're a 501c3, they can raise money in their local area, and our commitment to them is 100% money donated local, stays local. But also we create national awareness resources and encouragement resources for the church at large, because we want to help more people understand who this foster care community is and see them as people, not an issue. We want to, and that's through a podcast we have called the Forgotten Podcast, where I get to interview members of the foster care community. I was just talking to someone today who experienced horrific abuse throughout her life in foster, or through, and had to enter foster care, but she's experienced home in Jesus. And she talks about the hope that she has experienced. And we also have a second podcast called Just Neighbors. And this is really for the church leader. This is a podcast geared to okay, we have a vertical relationship with Christ. How do we live out this horizontal relationship to our vulnerable neighbors? How do we become a neighbor of justice, mercy, and compassion? And then we create other resources. We have a series called Foster Care in the Church that you can find on Right Now Media, that really helps give an introduction to foster care. And it's great to use in small groups. So we're always trying to just create resources that the church can become equipped. And everything we do for the church and for our advocates is for free, because we just really, really want to get this message out and serve them well so they can go serve others well.
I remember for a while, I don't know if you're doing them anymore, but I think you called them journey bags, where you were supplying agencies with backpacks, ready-made backpacks, because kids, when they're yanked out of their home, don't have anything. Talk about that.
Yeah, that is often a need. We're always listening to the agency to find out what they need. And so when that is a need in the community, we will make those backpacks, and those are filled with comfort and essential items. So many times kids have lost everything that they can call their own. And so to give them something, just pajamas, for different ages, it looks different. But for a teenager, there might be a journal, there might be some pajamas, some hygiene products, just things that gives a little dignity back to them in this time of need. And certainly want to make sure everything we offer them is new and something that we would want to give our child, not kind of a leftover.
Yeah, so good. Okay, we're going to pause. When we come back, so the ministry then is starting to grow and burst. And again, I remember walking with you through, just all of that. And there's so much more to that story of just, starts and stops, learning, go this way, and just trusting God with the shaping of this vision. And then God invites her to bring some siblings into her home as foster kids. And we'll talk about that because the story kind of keeps going. So Jami Kaeb is my guest today. And I really just wanted her to come on to talk about her own story and how it's evolved, because she's given God her yes. And my hope and prayer is that it inspires you, because her story is going to be different than your story. But what's beautiful is when you give God your yes, He is going to lead you in the way that you were always meant to go and use you in ways beyond your wildest dreams. Remember what Ephesians 3:20-21 says? God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above and beyond all you could ever dare to ask or imagine. But the clincher word is according to His work within you. He can do it. He wants to. He will do it. But will you give Him your yes? We'll be back in a minute. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for tuning in to Susie Larson Live, talking to Jami Kaeb. And I met her many years ago, over 20 years ago, I want to say, at a conference where I was speaking at, and we became friends. I mentored her for a number of years, and watching her blossom and grow and do all that God's called her to do. Now, like I said, I just stand back and watch, and I'm in awe of how God is using her and her family. She got married at 19 years old, married her dear husband, Clint, her sweetheart, and they had 2 daughters biologically. Then God opened the door, and they adopted Hudson from Guatemala. And then they tried to adopt more children, and the doors kept slamming shut. And she's like, wait, I gave you my yes, and you keep saying no, God. And God allowed that heartbreak to redirect her. And one day she brought her little 3 kids into the local foster care office and just saw how dingy it was and had questions about things, and decided to mobilize a group in her Christian community to get in there and paint the walls and replace the furniture and buy new toys, because these kids who are being pulled out of their homes are in trauma. And she wanted to soften that blow a little bit. And as she started to blog about that and create awareness around the foster care world, people from around the country started to reach out to her. And thus, this ministry that she never set out to start was born, TFI, the Forgotten Initiative. And now it serves all over the nation, equipping the church, really people, advocates, to help connect the church to foster care agencies, to really, when you support these workers and you're helping them, and the families, you're helping these children who are so often overlooked. So you're building this ministry, which we don't have time to even get into it, but that's in it of itself, its own Mount Everest that you're climbing and learning as you go, building the plane as you go. And then the Lord calls you to bring 2 brothers into your home. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and that happened fairly shortly after I started. I had even walked into the agency, but we decided we were going to try to become foster parents. And so we got the call about 2 little boys. They were 3 and 7 months old, and they needed a foster home. And they started our journey. I'll never forget the day we were waiting for them to show up. We knew very, very little about them. We could not wait to meet them. And we just said when the agency worker pulled up with them, I remember going out and meeting them and saying, "We are so happy you're here." And it was about 5 months later that their sister, who was 2 at the time, also needed a home. And
how old were they again? I'm sorry, Jami.
They
Forgive
were
me.
3 and 7 months old.
Those boys were 3 and 7 months old? I didn't remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
Goodness. Okay, keep going.
And their sister was 2, and she also needed a home, and we were ready to welcome her in too. And so we went from having 3 kids to having 6 kids in a matter of a few months. And at that season, our kids were 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And life got crazy after that.
Yeah. And how did you adjust? And how did you help them acclimate from being removed from their home? I know for a while the goal was to help them reunite, but that didn't work out. How did you acclimate as a family to this? Suddenly your family's doubled in size.
Yeah. The beautiful thing was kind of adoption had become a family culture. Welcoming kids had become a family culture. Our older daughters were only 4 and 2 when we brought home Hudson. And so they were on the journey with us too, wanting to adopt. And so when we got to welcome in these little kids, even through foster care, they were just so excited to love on them and to care for them. And it wasn't all roses by any means. Honestly, that's when I experienced depression for the first time. I just remember my whole world had just turned upside down. And now I had workers coming into my home, and I had kids that had needs that I had never experienced before, and we were meeting with their birth parents, trying to encourage them, and that brought a lot of emotions. And so my whole world kind of was spiraling, and I remember looking out the window at one point when they were all just playing together, really lovely, and I felt like I can't do this. And that's when I kind of went to the doctor and said, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel the way I used to feel. And that's when she told me, I think you're depressed. And that was extremely challenging for me because I actually had a false belief about depression at that time that meant, if I'm depressed, then I must not be trusting God. And she actually encouraged me to think about medication, and I started that, and it helped. But that was hard for me also because I thought, well, shouldn't I just be able to pray harder and feel better? And it just wasn't the case. I needed a little extra help, and God really showed me, this is my provision for you. I've created doctors. I've created this, and this is a gift that I'm giving you. I won't ever forget the day I recognized I started feeling better after I had been on medication for a couple of weeks. I was driving them to preschool, and it was a lovely day. And I am naturally more of an optimist. That's my disposition. And I remember saying, "Kids, it's a gorgeous day." And all of a sudden it hit me, and I thought, I'm back.
Wow.
And so that has been a whole journey for me as well. But
Mm.
Foster care reveals so much of your own need and your own, again, desire for control. And I mean, God needed to strip me of that. And he continues to need to strip me of that as my kids have become teenagers and all the
Yeah.
things.
And how long did you have them thinking you'd be returning them to the family? How long were they in their home with that
Yeah,
tension of going, they could leave at any time?
sure. Probably a year and a half.
Wow.
And then and then the goal moved because you go to the court, and the goal moved from reunification to parents to termination of parental rights. But their parents actually, because we had a relationship with them before rights were terminated on them, they got the opportunity to surrender rights directly if they wanted, and they chose to surrender rights directly to us and
Mm.
ask us to care for their kids. And that was a beautiful and heartbreaking thing on
Yeah.
its own right.
Wow. Okay, so you've got 6 kids, and you're, again, it's like you think about the boat rocking like crazy, and then you find your footing and level things out. And I mean, again, friends, there's just not enough time to talk about the family meetings and the organization of always trying to, keeping the ducks in the row, because you have to have some kind of structure. I mean, times when you and I had a phone call, and you're like, this is quiet time. And the kids all
Yes,
know it. So they all had to go
right.
to their spots. You can read a book, you can nap, but you're going to be
Right.
quiet. And I mean, I was always so impressed with that structure because it taught them rhythm. And I think structure brings
Uh-huh.
a lot of security. And
Mm.
we had kind of a regular phone call around that time. And I remember,
Mhm.
I don't know, just if, maybe we had to miss a call, but there wasn't that much time in between calls. And you're like, oh, by the way, we're heading to Africa. And I'm like, wait, what? And so talk about, you're like, I have a son in Africa. We need to go get him. How did that come up?
Mm. Yeah, it was a few years after I think we had finalized the adoption of the three. And I met some kids from Africa, and I just got a sense that maybe God was asking us to pray about adopting from Africa. So I told that to my husband, and he said, sure, we can pray, but I wouldn't expect anything.
Hmm.
Well, we,
Famous last words,
we,
right?
yeah, right, exactly. We actually ended up getting a referral of a child in Africa, a little girl who was 3, and we fell in love with her and had her referral for a few months. Went to Uganda to meet her, was spent 10 days with her. Um,
Wow.
but through that time, experienced some things we did not know. Like, she actually had been living with her family. She had a family. Like, there were some things that we hadn't been told. Um, and so it was a very tumultuous time, to say the least, because our desire was not to take a child from a family, but to help a child in need. And ultimately, we did find out that her father did desire for her to be adopted. However, in Uganda, the judge has final authority, and the judge said no. The judge made the decision that she would not be adopted, that she needed to remain. And so we had been with her for 10 days. We had gone home. We're planning to go back in a couple weeks to bring her home. And we got that call, and it was heartbreaking because we loved her. And yet we had been praying fervently during that time, God, if this isn't right, you have to stop it. And so we knew he had done what was right, but it was still very painful and heartbreaking because it was the death of a dream. And it made us kind of nervous, like, well, did we misunderstand your calling to us? Are you saying no to adoption? Or did you just say no to this? And so we took some time to grieve and to rest and to listen to him. And ultimately, we heard from him that his calling was the same, that yes, we were still called to step forward, and that the only reason we wouldn't would be out of fear of getting hurt again. And we just weren't willing to let fear have the final say. And so we talked to our kids, and we shared with them, guys, what do you think? Do you think we should do this again? Do you think we should be open for another child? And they just unanimously said, yes, of course we should. And one of our kids in particular, I mean, it hit them hard too because they were excited. And one of our kids, she had really experienced the effects of anxiety that came from like the door shutting. And I said, honey, what do you think? Because this could happen again. We have no guarantee. We could
have a referral. We could meet the child. The judge could say no. Is it worth it? And she just said, yeah, it's worth it. And so we told the agency we were willing. And this time, on February 19th, which is my birthday, we got a call about a little boy named Friday. And he needed a home, and he became our forever son. And he has been such a gift.
And Friday, he was named Friday because he was abandoned on a Friday or found on a Friday? What was that story?
No, he was brought to a children's home, really like to be a safe place on a Friday. And they did not know his name. He was young. They called him a few different things, and he didn't really respond. And so they said, you know what? We're going to call you Friday. We're going to call you Friday Martin, after Martin Luther King Jr., because we believe you're going to change the world.
Wow.
And so that's our boy.
Wow. And how old is he now?
He's 12. He's 12 now. He was 3
Beautiful
when we
smile.
brought him home.
Wow. And he's got a gorgeous smile. What's he like?
Friday is quiet. He does not want a lot of attention, but he's a little mischievous. He's got a tender heart, and he just has a massive place in my heart.
Wow. So 7 kids, right?
7 kids.
Okay, we're going to pause here. There's a little more to the story, friends, but what a journey. Jami and Clint giving their yes. And at the same time, behind the scenes, what you don't know is they have a conviction to always be helping a family at risk. So while they're trying to establish order with 6 and then 7 kids in their home, I mean, imagine all the homework, all the assignments, all the chores, all the food, all the schedules, managing all of that, and then also making space to have youth kids at your house to help a family that's at risk, bringing them in or giving them groceries. That's how this family lives. And so your kids have had a front row seat to look at the gospel in motion. But even so, friends, there's more to the story. So we'll wrap it up here in just a few minutes. Jami Kaeb, my friend, is my guest today. And Sherry writes in, oh my goodness, I needed this today. Thanks to you both. Thank you, Sherry, for listening. We'll be back in a minute. Faith Radio podcasts are produced by the listener-supported ministry of Faith Radio. If you're interested in becoming a team member, a donor to this ministry, you can support the podcast anytime and donate at myfaithradio.com. Thanks so much for tuning into Susie Larson Live. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to hear a story today of I want to say an everyday kingdom woman, but I don't think there's much everyday about you, Jami. But I mean that in the way of people privately living the kingdom life and doing what God has given them to do in ways. These are the people I believe in heaven are going to be celebrated beyond our wildest dreams. It's not going to be a who's who on that great day. It's going to be who is that? And you're going to hear these stories of people privately, quietly giving God their yes. And I'm just wondering what might happen if doesn't matter your age. If you said, Lord, would you do the impossible in and through me? Would you align my heart with yours? Would you show me my self-limiting beliefs, my God-limiting beliefs, my tendency to self-preserve and self-protect? Would you give me the courage to give you my yes? And when you bump up against resistance, it just shows maybe a wrong belief about God. Because he's not going to ask you to do something that's outside his perfect will for you. At first, it might not feel like it fits. It might scare you a little bit, but you're going to be so fulfilled. I mean, Jami, I think of, at first when you saw Stephen Curtis Chapman talk about adoption, you're like, no, if you were to stop there and you were to miss out on the 5 kids that you added to your 2 kids, can you even imagine your life without them?
No, it makes me want to weep, actually, thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, the pictures that you post of your family is a crew, and they're, to me, they're diverse. You've got a diversity in your family, I mean, ethnic diversity. I mean, It's generational. It just is amazing to me to look at your beautiful, colorful family, and you guys, these kids have this sense of identity as a family. and you can see it. And you guys have built that so much. And Friday is, again, 12, did you say?
He's 12. Yeah.
Yep. And you're managing this full-time ministry with 10 staff members. You're 43 years old. Is that right?
Correct.
And you just found something out.
Yeah. I'm pregnant. This is a shock, the biggest shock of our entire lives. I thought I was starting menopause when I missed my period. I'm 14 weeks pregnant. Clint and I, like, not to give too many details, but Clint and I have been doing the same thing for 20 years. I have not been pregnant in 20 years. And all of a sudden God deemed to bring a new life into our family. And it's awesome. I mean, I did not think I wanted that. I did not plan for that. I cried when I found out. But the kids have been so incredibly excited, and we are so excited. I got to see my little one on the ultrasound just a couple days ago, and it's an absolute miracle.
It's a miracle in so many ways. Can I ask, do you know what you're having, or are you not telling? Or
Not yet. We don't know yet, but I'm hoping to find out very soon. Yeah.
Wow.
Let me tell you some of the funny stats, though, Susie, because it's just wild. I realized, doing the math, that in the year 2030, when Friday graduates high school in May of 2030, this baby will start kindergarten in August of 2030.
Oh, my word.
My oldest is 21 and married. I was pregnant with her. I mean, it's just...
So when they have a baby, my
baby will
their
be
auntie or
their
uncle
aunt.
could be
Or uncle.
12 months older. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Wow. What did Clint say when you told him?
Well, I cried and Clint laughed. Because he's like, oh, what else do you do? I mean, it just blew our minds so much. I literally had called the nurse and just said, listen, I feel terrible. I missed my period. I'm sure it's perimenopause. Can you just tell me, like, can I get some extra hormones or something or vitamins? Because this perimenopause is kicking my butt. Is it even worth taking a test? And she said, I think you better go take a test.
Wow. And I thank the Lord she did that and didn't give you hormones. Someone would have thought, oh, you can't be. You've been trying, you've been, for 20 years, you haven't gotten pregnant. Praise God that they weren't careless with that. Wow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
No,
and now are you settling into the idea?
I am settling in, but that's really what I was referring to at the beginning of the program of I have finally started to feel better in the last week or so. And I'm thankful for that. But, I felt pretty rough for the first trimester. And I wasn't able to go into work. I was so dizzy and nauseous that I couldn't even drive. And my capacity, I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. My brain wasn't thinking the things I needed it to be thinking. And I really struggled with that because I want to be helpful to my team and I want to serve and add value. And fortunately, again, God was so good and gracious, and my team has been so gracious and really reminding me of the truth that this is a season. You are not what you do. All of these truths that we sometimes forget and need our people and God's word to remind us of.
Yeah. Sherry writes in, my oldest is 44, and we adopted a 5-year-old. She says, God is fun.
Wow.
And someone else, he is fun. Someone else wrote in and said, this has encouraged me to search my heart and give God my yes. And that was my hope and my prayer. And Jami, we're going to be praying for you in the days ahead as you trust God. And I just feel like when you give God access, he will keep surprising you. And as Jami stands where she stands now, even though she's walked through twists and turns and hard days and good days, she is rich. Her family is amazing. And she would have missed all of that if self-preservation would have been her idol. I want that to be loud and clear today as you hear Jami's story. We love you, Jami. We thank you for your courage. You inspire me more than I can ever say.
Oh, Susie, I love you, and I thank you for what you're doing here and just for who you are.
Well, thank you, my friend. We'll be in touch for sure. I'll be continuing to pray. Kev laughed out loud when I told him you were pregnant. Like a happy laugh. It's so good. Well, thank you. And come back once you deliver your baby and tell us an update on your ministry, and we'll talk again, okay?
Okay.
Okay, love you, friend. Thank you so much, friends, for tuning in. I just love bringing everyday stories to you every once in a while because it just reminds you, trust God, give him your yes, and then let the adventure begin. We'll meet you back here next time. Thank you for listening to this conversation from Susie Larson Live. These conversations are available because of your support. You can become a supporter now at myfaithradio.com. Please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and then share it with friends so together we can all have a deeper life in Christ.
On the latest episode of the Wild God Stories podcast, we go to Africa.
I was raised in Sierra Leone in a community that truly lived the phrase, "It takes a village."
Until one day, the world outside Anita's village broke in.
I didn't grow up in a war zone, but I watched one unfold in the country I love.
God brought hope to her story and many others through radical provision.
God began to direct us towards Uganda, Africa.
I was born and grew up in the countryside of Ethiopia.
Nanjan I met in Kigali, Rwanda.
Discover how God showed up in the middle of war, loss, and impossible odds in Africa. Stories that'll make you say,
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow, God Stories, wherever you get your podcasts.